Hi, peeps. Since 1989, October has been declared as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So in support of that awareness, I decided to make domestic abuse the topic of this video since October is just 10 days away. Question: have you ever wondered how you can tell if you're in an abusive relationship? Well, before any of us can answer that question, we would need to know what domestic violence is, right? Domestic violence is a violent or aggressive behavior that happens within the confines of the home. And that behavior can be at the hands of any of the family members living in that house, be it the significant other, a child, an aunt, uncle, etc., etc. But in this particular video here, we're going to be focusing more on the abuse at the hands of a significant other. Now, the reason why it's so important that we know the signs of an abusive relationship is because literally anyone can be an abuser. And according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the majority of abusers are only violent towards their current and or their past intimate partners. And a study also found that 90% of those abusers are not criminal. They don't have criminal records, and that they're generally law-abiding citizens outside of their homes. So because of that, it's no way that we can really tell just by looking at them or researching criminal records to find out whether or not they're an abuser or not. So with that in mind, and keeping in mind the definition, here are 4 questions that you can ask yourself to determine if you're in an abusive relationship. Question 1: do I rely totally on my spouse or significant other for everything that I need? Now, this particular question will help you to pick out some of the subtle signs of abuse. Think about the necessities of life. Can you get what you want or need on your own? Or do you need to ask that significant other to take care of your needs as they arise? This is a good question because remember, an abuser wants to, well, let me rephrase that. An abuser will put their victim at a disadvantage. And that usually starts at the very beginning of the relationship, but it starts off subtly. It'll be with a question here and there regarding the choices that the victim make for themselves. And the questions are asked with the sole purpose of making that victim doubt themselves and making them believe that whatever positives that they have in their life are actually negatives. So the abuser wants the victim to rely only on their words, believe that their words are golden and that their words are law. Then that way, when the relationship progresses, after having already manipulated their victim into believing that they actually know what's best for them and that they know the victim better than they know themselves, in that situation, the things that the abuser say and the moves that the abuser make won't seem so aggressive or alarming to the victim. And it could be moves like insisting that the victim quit their job and not work any longer, insisting that they share one vehicle, which the abuser have control over, and suggesting that the friends and family aren't true to the victim or that they just don't have the victim's best interest at heart. So hearing all of that, do you see the disadvantage that an abuser puts his victim in? Making them dependent on them. And it's that codependency that's a major sign of domestic abuse. Domestic abuse doesn't always show up as physical strike. It can also be emotional abuse. And usually it's emotional abuse that happens first. It happens before the physical abuse take place. So be careful. If you're being emotionally abused, physical abuse could be right around the corner. Question 2: am I able to make my own choices? What that question entails is whether or not you can choose your own style of dress. Can you freely and at any time of the day get up and make a run just to go to the store or to visit a friend and so on? Can you choose your own hairstyle? This particular question, am I able to make my own choices, highlights another major sign of abuse, and that sign is controlling behavior. An abuser is very controlling of every aspect of your life. And again, it doesn't start off that way. It's a gradual process because with a narcissist, who is someone who's excessively interested in just themselves, they don't really want us to recognize the abuse quickly because they want us to accept it as a normal routine of things in our life. So that control may start with something small and happen from time to time, but eventually it'll escalate to something big and happen routinely. And at that point, it's then a normal way of life for the victim, and he has no control at all because he becomes accustomed to that treatment. Therefore, the victim is now totally relying on their significant other for every aspect of their life. So the victim is put at a disadvantage because they're without a vehicle. And without a vehicle, they can't get up and go as they feel, right? The victim is without money. Without money, they can't make needed purchases. They can't buy anything for themselves. They can't take care of themselves. But the significant other may step up and say, hey, I'm about to use the vehicle, and then offer to pick up whatever the victim needs. And I know some people may say, oh, that's so sweet, but actually it's not. What it is it's controlling, because the abuser doesn't want the victim to leave the house, because his goal is to isolate the victim. So that second question, am I able to make my own choices for my life? That's a major question to ask yourself. If you start seeing those warning signs where your significant other starts insisting that you do things their way, insisting that you wear what they want you to wear, insisting that you associate with who they want you to associate or not associate with, insisting that you go out when they want you to or stay in when they want you to, that's an alarming thing. Don't shake it off. That's a sign that you should be leaving that relationship. So after progressing to that point of control, the victim being without money and being without a means of transportation, he becomes trapped to an extent and feel that they can't make a move if they want to, because at this point, they're now showing another sign, which is what my third question points out. Question number 3, do I have to walk on eggshells in my own place of residence? If that's your place of residence, you should feel free to walk around and talk as you please in that home. You shouldn't have to feel that something you say or something you do will prompt an aggressive or violent reaction from your significant other. If you have to second guess what you want to say and what you want to do, that means you're in an intimidating situation and you're dealing with someone who is trying to control you or has already taken control of you. So this is a major question to ask yourself, because if you answer yes to it, then that means you're exhibiting fear, and one should never fear their significant other at no time. If that fear is present, that means love isn't present in your relationship, because as we all know, love is patient and kind. It's not jealous, it's not proud, and it doesn't become provoked. So that question helps you to identify the signs that you need to avoid, and avoid them like the bubonic plague, and run at the sight of any of them. Question 4, the final question. Am I living the life I was living before I met my significant other? And it's a twofold question. Am I living the life I want to live for me? Taking a look at how your life is currently and comparing it with the life you had before your significant other came into the picture, that forces you to see how unhappy your life is now, how much of yourself you've given up since then. Also, considering the life you planned for yourself and comparing it to what you are currently living. That helps you to see that you're no longer living your life, but rather you're living the life someone else wants you to live. You may have had dreams of a career and a family, and you may have even been on your way to achieving those dreams. But since getting with your significant other, you see that you're nowhere near achieving them, because you're now without a job, and you may even be taking birth control pills, all because your significant other convinced you that you didn't need kids or even want kids. It's a big problem if the life you're living now is a total 180 of what you wanted your life to be, because that means, again, you're no longer living your own life. You're living the life someone else wants you to live. And that is, my friends, a sign of living with a controlling person, which is a major sign of an abuser. Now, these 4 questions, which are only a few of many, many others, these are questions that you can use to gauge your relationship in terms of it being a healthy and loving relationship or an abusive relationship that you should remove yourself from. There are many signs of abuse, some of which are controlling behavior, a jealous nature, if he's possessive of you, if he's verbally abusing you, isolating you from your family and friends, sabotaging your work and your social life, humiliating you in public. The list goes on and on. But there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, because any one of us can become a victim if we're not aware of the warning signs. And that's regardless of who we are, be it citizens with regular 9-to-5 jobs, such as Tracy Thurman was played by Nancy McKeon in the movie A Cry for Help, where she was abused by her husband, who was a police. Or it can be citizens with celebrity status, such as Halle Berry, abused by a boyfriend who punctured her eardrum, causing permanent hearing loss in that ear. It can be Charlize Theron, who was emotionally and verbally abused by her father as a child. And that abuse of Charlize Theron, along with the abuse to her mother, resulted in her mother shooting and killing her father when she was 15 years old after he first fired a gun in her mother's room. Then there's Christinaaguilera, who was emotionally abused, seeing her mother being physically abused at the hands of her father. And we all know about Tyler Perry suffering brutal physical abuse at the hands of his father. Again, that list goes on and on. So let's always have our eyes wide open and recognize the signs, asking ourselves those pertinent questions, if need be, to ensure that we're not falling prey to a controlled abuser. And never mistake them for expressions of love, because remember, love doesn't hurt. If you or someone you know are experiencing domestic abuse, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text the word START to 88788. Well, peeps, that's all I have for now. Be safe and make sure you're in a loving and healthy relationship. This is Shell signing out.